In this episode of Watching the Watchers, we're talking about Andrew Cuomo, the former governor of New York, just got hit with a criminal charge called forcible touching. And so we've got a lot to dive into there. We're going to actually take a look at the misdemeanor complaint that came out from the Albany County Sheriff's Office against Andrew Cuomo. We don't really know for sure who the alleged victim here is of the forcible touching, but we've got a pretty good idea. We think it's a woman named Brittany Commisso because we've heard a lot about her. She's come out, publicly identified herself. She was in the Letitia James, who is the Attorney General of New York. She was in her big 168-page investigation into Andrew Cuomo. And we've got to go through some of this because now that this is a criminal case, we're going to see where it goes. And I've been a little bit skeptical about some of these allegations from a lot of these individuals. And so we're going to take a look at the New York law. We're going to take a look at the section that they're specifically saying he violated. It's a Class A misdemeanor in New York, so we'll learn what that is. And then we'll just see how much of Brittany Commisso's statements and allegations actually stand up here. So we might actually defend Governor Cuomo on this show. Oh, gosh. All right, so we're going to do that in our first segment. In the second segment, we're going to change gears. We're going to talk about what's going on in New York City, not too far from Andrew Cuomo, but we are going to talk specifically about what's happening with this new vaccine mandate, because Mayor DeBlasio came out and he said, if you are not vaccinated by the end of this week, don't bother showing up to work on Monday. That includes you, police officers. That includes you, fire department officials, firefighters, and it's going to probably become a gigantic problem. We're actually going to hear from the New York Police Department commissioner, a guy by the name of Dermot Shea, says that, we've got a pretty decent number of New York Police Department officials that are vaccinated, something like 75%. And you might say, well, that's a pretty good number. But not if you're going to lose a quarter of your workforce, and a quarter of those people are police officers. Not so good for New York City. And so the commissioner, Dermot Shea, came out and said that we've got all sorts of contingency plans that we are bracing for, because if we come to work on Monday and 25% of our police officers are not there, that might be a big problem for our citizens throughout New York City and elsewhere. So we're going to talk about that in the second clip. And then, of course, Ron DeSantis is going to come riding in and solve a lot of these problems for people who don't want to be in New York City anymore, maybe looking for greener pastures. And so we'll talk about that and more. And then in our final segment, we're talking about a state trooper, a guy by the name of Christopher Baldner. Interesting case. He was just arraigned this week, means he was charged with a crime for murder. A police officer, New York State trooper, charged with murder, got indicted and was arraigned for the killing of an 11-year-old girl named Monica Goods. Whole story surrounds a traffic stop that went bad some time ago, and we're going to break this down. We're going to learn a little bit about what pit maneuvers look like. Not a pit stop, that's in racing. A pit maneuver that you'll see from police when they're trying to actually stop a vehicle. We're going to learn a little bit more about those, because it sounds like this may have been one of those cases where this trooper was trying to stop a fleeing car and did a pit maneuver, caused this young girl, Monica Goods, to be thrown out of the vehicle and killed. And so now he's being charged with murder. And so we're going to see what happens with this case. And so we want to make sure that you are here and with us and a part of the show as we get into it. We record at 4 p.m. Arizona time at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. And if you want to participate in the creation of the show, which I encourage you to do, it's a lot of fun, and you're a supporter over there, then you get to use a form that looks like this. And as we're going through each of the various segments, you can participate. We'll take your questions. It's always helpful if you keep your questions kind of in order as we're presenting live, and then we'll do our very best to answer those. Of course, over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. And if you're looking for clips, I know this show's an hour and a half, 2 hours long. Sometimes you can't always stay for the whole thing, or you just like that second segment or that third segment, and you want to send that to a friend or a family member. You can now do that over on our Clips channel, because this whole show gets clipped up for easy sharing. All right, and so without any further ado, let's get into the news of the day, shall we? Former Governor Andrew Cuomo, facing criminal charges now. We're kind of skeptical about whether this was going to actually happen. We know that a police report was filed with the Albany Sheriff's Department. We've talked a lot about this case on this channel, gone through a number of the different alleged victims, the women who've been claiming mistreatment, but we were always concerned or questioning whether they were actually going to matriculate into criminal charges now that Governor Cuomo has been resigned in disgrace, as some people might say. But it turns out it is moving forward. And we can take a look here, get a headline over from NBC in New York. They're telling us that Andrew Cuomo is charged with a misdemeanor sex crime. Misdemeanor, quote, sex crime. And so you see that there, they're being a little bit clever here, kind of calling it a sex crime because it comes out of the sex crime category. But it's not sort of the same type of sex crime that you would see, like sexual assault or rape or something that would be a major felony offense. It's a misdemeanor offense, so it's sort of not in that same category as many of the other sex crimes that you often think about when you hear the word sex crime. Stuff involving children, stuff involving, forced sexual activities and things like that are all going to be felonies, not misdemeanors. Misdemeanor is a less serious version of a crime. Court spokesperson is confirming this. Now, they say that a state court spokesperson actually did confirm this. There was some confusion earlier today because apparently this kind of leaked out before it was supposed to leak out. And so the court said, yeah, I mean, it's coming, but it shouldn't have been made public, but it is coming. And so it's been sort of a little bit of a back and forth. But you can see I took this screenshot 5 minutes, after all of this sort of back and forth kind of ended. And so they're saying it was confirmed. Further details, though, were not immediately available. Governor resigned back in August after an investigation by Attorney General Letitia James. You remember Letitia James? She was the state AG who came out and was very angry at Donald Trump. She called him that illegitimate president. She has all those weird kind of facial expressions. I mean, I know I have weird facial expressions too, but she had some very aggressive ones, but only when she was talking about Donald Trump. Remember, she called him an illegitimate president. She had all those, her whole face was contorting. Very strange. But anyways, it's Letitia James. And so we've always speculated that this whole thing was largely political because Letitia James wants to run for governor now. And so I get really agitated when you get these government politicians that are using the justice system to further their political ends. I don't like anybody politicizing the justice system in any way, shape, or form. Unfortunately, it happens basically every day. It's kind of our whole entire justice system is politicized. Whether you want to talk about Mothers Against Drunk Driving and them as a lobby, or any of these other major, criminal institutions that are promoting very harsh crimes on people so that they can fill their prisons up. Right? I got a lot of problems with sort of using people and their lives as they're going through a very difficult time to achieve your political ends. It offends me to hell. And what we're seeing here is a lot of that, right? This is New York politics. This is Governor Cuomo, who's been a creep for 40 years in New York politics. But suddenly it becomes a problem because he's got some people who want his job. He's got Governor Kathy Hochul, who's the new governor, or Hochul now, Hochul, whatever. She is now the governor. And we also then have a very ambitious New York State Attorney General by the name of Letitia James, who wants to also make sure Cuomo was removed. Well, he has been removed, and so many of us thought that maybe that was the end of this conversation. Doesn't seem like it. Here is Nick Reisman on Twitter. He gets us a copy of the criminal complaint. Says that this is detailing a forcible touching charge, and we're going to take a look at that statute, detailing evidence that includes text messages, BlackBerry pins, and swipe to entry records. So this is the misdemeanor complaint, right? This is something that they're going to send over to the court, drafted up by the sheriff's office, saying, listen, we've investigated this, we've done our interviews, reviewed everything, and we're recommending that, saying there's enough probable cause here that a crime has been committed, forwarding this over to the attorney's office, filing the charges with the courts, right? This is the criminal complaint. You can see it says misdemeanor complaint talking about Andrew M. Cuomo, 12/6/57, got a birthday coming up. I, Amy Kowalowski, the complainant herein, am the police officer of the state of New York. I'm an investigator of the sheriff's office assigned to the Criminal Investigations Unit. I accuse Andrew Cuomo, the defendant in this action, and charge that on December 7, 2020, and we're going to pay close attention to these dates because we're going to break this down. We're going to listen and try to identify who the actual victim is because they're not telling us. If you look here, you're going to see all these sort of blanked out areas. It says the blouse shirt of victim, but there's this sort of blank area in this paragraph. Well, that's the name of the alleged victim, right? That's the name of the woman who's making the accusations, presumably. And you see that same blank out, a redaction down here, wireless cell phone records of who? Oh, well, it's the accuser. Capital swipes belonging to whoever that is, right? An accuser. The testimony of so-and-so. The accuser taken by First Deputy Attorney General at the AG's office. Okay, so we're trying to identify who this person is. And so one way you can do that, of course, is match the dates and times up to data that we already know. So here we've got December 7, 2020, between the hours of 3:51 o'clock in the afternoon and 4 o'clock in the morning. So kind of a nighttime, party, whatever. 138 Eagle Street at the Governor Executive Mansion. So we're talking about end dates in December, the executive mansion, second floor. Andrew Cuomo, here it is, did knowingly and intentionally commit the Class A misdemeanor of forcible touching. They give us the section number of the New York statute, 130.52. We'll take a look at that here in the next slide. A person is guilty of forcible touching when such a person intentionally and for no legitimate purpose, not saving somebody from falling over the edge of a railway or something like that, forcibly touches the sexual or other intimate parts of a person for the purpose of degrading or abusing such person, or for the purpose of gratifying the actor's sexual desire. Oh, all right. So Cuomo did that. To wit, he said, at the aforementioned state and time, Cuomo did intentionally and for no legitimate purpose forcibly place his hand under the blouse shirt of the victim. No name here, but we're going to hear from a woman named Brittany Commisso, has a very similar story, onto her intimate body part, specifically the victim's left breast, for the purpose of degrading and gratifying his sexual desires, all contrary to the provisions of the statute that was made. Right? So it sounds like Cuomo's in the governor's executive mansion. It's around the holidays. Somebody comes in, don't know who it is yet, reaches the hand up under the blouse, does a little grab down there. Not good, Cuomo. He says here, the above allegations of fact are made pursuant to information gained from an investigation. They've got BlackBerry PIN messages. They've got wireless cell phone records of whomever. Don't know who that is. We have the capital swipes belonging to somebody. Aviation records, so travel, text message records from Cuomo's cell phone. Ooh, wonder what those say. Wonder if those are spicy. We have attached media coverage of documentation of a press conference from December 7th, and we have testimony of so-and-so, right? Once again, probably the victim. And so not a lot of details there. That is the extent of it, but we can take a look at the statute. We heard that they're referencing us over to 130.52, and you can see here, right, it's the same language that we already saw in the complaint. Let's see here. Subsection 2 is talking about this being a passenger on a bus or subway, so subsection 2 doesn't matter. For the purpose of this section, forcible touching, we can learn, includes squeezing, grabbing, or pinching. So it sounds like, a little bit of a butt squeeze or a butt pinch or a little butt grab is enough here. Forcibly touches the sexual or other intimate parts of another person for gratifying their sexual desire. Intimate parts. We have a butt, might be an intimate part. Breast might be an intimate part. We're going to have to see what the claims are. Now, again, even if he is convicted of this, right, what is this? This is a Class A misdemeanor. You can see that down here at the bottom of the statute. And so what does that mean? A Class A misdemeanor. It sounds very scary. And it is. It's a criminal charge. It's something that carries up to 1 year in jail and 3 years of probation in New York. But that's not really the most severe type of offense they have there. So if you take a look at this in section 55.05 in New York, you can see that they've got this whole class of felonies, Class A through E. Okay, Class A is going to be the most serious. So that's going to be for like murder, first degree murder. And then it sort of works its way down. And then you have this lesser tier of offenses, which are misdemeanors. Okay, so Cuomo is being charged with this one right here, just a Class A misdemeanor. So it's like the highest category of misdemeanors, but it's also not even in a felony category. So it's just not the same as what many people think about when they think of sex crimes. Yes, he's being charged with a sex crime, but it's a misdemeanor. It's not like he's going to go to prison for that, right? If you take a look at the statute, it says a court may sentence an individual to 1 year in jail as a maximum. 1 year in jail as a maximum. So that's it. Right? And even if he is convicted of this, probably nothing's going to happen or come of it. We'll see if that ever ultimately happens. Now, so people were digging in. They wanted to see who this redacted person was. Who are they talking about? So this woman over on Twitter, Juliana Bruno, said that, this kind of matches the same timeline of the account of executive assistant number 1, who was already in Letitia James' sexual harassment investigation. We talked about that here on this channel. He says they all match up. Name sounds like it's Brittany Commisso. And so we're going to listen in and see what Brittany has to say about this, because she's actually been very public about this. That was me. Cuomo's a creep show. Yes, I'd love to talk to the media. No problem at all. And so if you recall on this channel back in August, we talked about this. We talked about this report that Letitia James drafted up along with, you can see coming out of her office here, Office of the Attorney General of Letitia James. She got like a bunch of people on this investigation. They wrote a 168-page report into Andrew Cuomo. It's a really big book report that they really went into depth on. And you can see this was one of the sections, right? And at this time, we didn't know who Brittany Commisso was. You can see her photograph is there. She came out after the fact or contemporaneously with this and was actually, self-identified, came out and said, yep, it's me. That's who I am. And so this is what she said back in the governor's, in the investigatory report about Cuomo. And we talked about this, right? This was where we got the phrase mingle mamas. Ooh, mingle mamas was some sort of phrase that Cuomo was apparently into. The factual findings of this report said since approximately late 2019, governor engaged, inappropriate conduct. This woman here, executive assistant number 1, is a woman. Close and intimate hugs, kisses on the cheeks, forehead, and at least one kiss on the lips. Touching and grabbing of her butt during hugs, and on one occasion while taking selfies with him. Comments and jokes by the governor about executive assistant's personal life and relationships, calling her and another assistant mingle mamas from Cuomo, inquiring multiple times about whether she cheated, would cheat on her husband. Help me find a girlfriend, he said. A lot of offensive interactions. Another close hug. But you'll notice here, in November of 2020, they say, which was a date that we do not see here, right? This is a December 7th date. Here we have a November date. Close hug, reached under her blouse, grabbed her breast. Okay, for over 3 months, kept the groping incident to herself, found herself becoming emotional in a way. She confided in certain colleagues who reported her to senior staff in the executive chamber, right? And so that was that whole deal. Here she was. She came out and said, I was afraid. I was afraid of everything. I was a key legislative. I wanted to go public with all of this stuff. Then there was the first time that she came out on camera and started communicating about this. And you'll notice, right, this was the first woman to file this criminal complaint. We talked about it. So she went to Albany, filed the criminal complaint. You see it's coming out of Albany right here. She filed a criminal complaint against Cuomo as the executive assistant. So the sheriff looked into it. And so the date has changed a little bit. In the investigation that came out from Letitia James, we've got a November 2020 date. In the actual criminal complaint, the misdemeanor complaint, we have a December 7th date. But then we also have, let's see, this was back second floor. Yeah, okay. So they're saying December 7th. All right, so let's carry on. Here is Brittany Commisso now. This was her conversation about really what Cuomo did. Now, you may not have seen this. Maybe you have. Here it is again, though. This is her saying that Cuomo is rubbing her butt. This is going to be one of the key victims in this criminal charge. Let's see what she had to say about it.
I had to go over to the mansion to help the governor with a State of the State speech. I wasn't there late. I did my final edit, and while I was upstairs in the office, the governor said, why don't we take a selfie?
So his suggestion, you
yes.
say? With your phone?
With my phone. I then felt, while taking the selfie, his hand go down my back onto my butt, and he started rubbing it. Not sliding it, not, quickly brushing over it, rubbing my butt.
Look at that. Look at that face. Just pure revulsion right there. Look at that. She's revolted, as she should be. It's not appropriate. But we'll see, how this goes. So here is another clip, right? So he starts to kind of give her this embrace. He's doing some serious rubbing down there on the butt, not just a braise, not just anything that might happen, in passing. This was a serious butt rub going on here. And so Brittany Commisso, what does she decide to do after the butt rub? After he's getting in there, she decides, well, let's just sit on a couch and we'll take a selfie together. Here's what she says.
And we can take a better one.
So you sat on the couch?
I sat on the couch because I thought to myself, okay, I don't think on the couch that he would have a way to just do what he just did. So I felt safer actually on the couch. And in the photo, I have my arm wrapped around his shoulder.
Look at this.
Almost as if, we were taking a picture with a buddy,
Look.
and
Look.
that is the one that has been blurred out, that has been now released to the public.
She didn't look too upset there to me, to be honest about that. And it's look, I get it. I'm not a woman, so I don't really know what it's like to be in a situation like that with a powerful governor. So I try to be empathetic about it, but at the same time, I'm also highly skeptical. Okay, because the allegation, as we're going to see, is that she's been there for a long period of time. She was sort of indulging in some of this stuff, and then as soon as the dam broke, the tide went out, then all these accusers spring into action. Now they're hitting the media, and she's probably going to be on CNN writing a book at some point in time. We'll see. All right, so here's another clip. Now, this is about the second incident. So that was the first incident when she sat down with the governor and took a selfie. That was back in December 31, 2019. Okay, so that happened December 31, 2019. Forgot to mention that. So in 2019, the year's over. We get this little butt grab. We get this little selfie camera thing going on. And she sticks around until November 2020. Still just kind of hanging out there with a sexual predator. And then suddenly what happens is the second incident. This is how she describes that one.
So he gets up and he goes to give me a hug. And I could tell immediately when he hugged me, it was in probably the most sexually aggressive manner than any of the other hugs that he had given me. It was then that I said, Governor, my words were, "You're going to get us in trouble." And I thought to myself, that probably wasn't the best thing to say,
Yeah.
But at that time, I was so afraid that one of the mansion staff, that they were going to come up and see this and think, oh, is that what she comes here for? And that's not what I came there for, and that's not who I am. And I was terrified of that. And when I said that, he walked over, shut the door so hard to the point where I thought, for sure, someone downstairs must think if they heard that, what is going on? Came back to me, and that's when he put his hand up my blouse and cupped my breast over my bra. I exactly remember looking down, seeing his hand, which is a large hand, thinking to myself, oh my God, this is happening. It happened so quick. He didn't say anything. When I stopped it, he just pulled away and walked away.
I want to
Well, he's got a big hand, that's why she was so scared about it. Even though she'd been there for, coming up on a full year at that point in time. And she's sort of saying things like, oh, stop. They're going to see us. And did you notice in that entire clip, she wasn't really offended about the sexual violation of a man assaulting her body. She was more concerned about the people in the mansion hearing about her. Oh my God, they slammed the door. They're going to hear. Oh my God, you gave me a hug. Stop. We're going to get caught. And then when he slams the door, her biggest concern is, oh my gosh, somebody heard about that, and they're just going to think of me like I'm some sort of a prostitute or something like that. So it's sort of the insult to her, I guess, her reputation as not wanting to be seen as a prostitute. It's not so much the fact that there's some creepy guy who's a powerful governor who is molesting you. So, whatever. I don't really buy it. Look, I understand that this type of stuff happens all the time. I just think in the context of Cuomo, Letitia James, all of these people who are just springing out of the woodwork, criminal charges, all of it, it's all a little bit too convenient, in my humble opinion. Now, we also have the governor's office who've already been doing defense on this, and they have come out pretty hard. And this was some time ago. I think this was back right after the first investigation came out from Letitia James. Cuomo and his attorney have already been building an entire dossier in defense of Cuomo, and some of the dates and all this stuff just doesn't really add up. You may recall this back during, before Cuomo actually resigned, this was his defensive strategy. This is his attorney.
And we're aware of no record indicating that Brittany Commisso was at the mansion in November on any other day than November 16th. And Ms. Commisso has consistently said this occurred in November. Why did the investigators not get the records, and why did they not include them in the report? What else was so bothersome and very hard for me to take as a lawyer for the governor is that the report suggests that the governor testified falsely about that day. It suggests that when the governor said others were present, including maybe up to 10 staff members in the mansion, the report just discredited him. But I now know that they did not bother to get the records in the email that reflected who was in the mansion that day.
Yeah, see, so there you go. So they're going to have all sorts of different angles that they're going to take this down. Let me show you a couple other documents I got from some of, I think these are Cuomo's team's response, some legal documents. It says, on October 9th, the report was issued. CBS News aired an interview of Ms. Commisso. We just watched that. She told another version of the November 2020 alleged groping incident in more detail, with more detail than appeared in April 7th. So basically what they're saying here is that she's got two different stories. She stated that basically she did not report these details. So she said at one point, and I could tell immediately when he hugs me, it was probably the most sexually aggressive manner that I said. We heard that quote. We request that the report be amended to include that this version of the alleged groping incident, she told. Okay, so here, let me go on to the next slide here. Let's see what this is. We further note the Times Union reported that instead of November 2020, as Ms. Commisso insisted in various interviews, the alleged groping incident now likely took place in early 2020. Right, so multiple different dates of an offense that they're sort of alleging here. Her stories just don't match up. State records reflect that the only day Ms. Commisso went to the mansion in early December was December 7th, see? And so this is, now it all comes full circle again, right? They're tying this back. That was the date that they actually put in the original misdemeanor complaint. And so you've got this, this woman who is having a very difficult time pinning the date down, has given multiple interviews, multiple different dates. And so they're picking December 7th now because she sort of filled in the dates, backfilled them to some degree. Despite Ms. Commisso's new claim after sending the text from the governor on the phone, Ms. Commisso, quote, immediately called Benton from that mobile. Governor's iPhone records did not show any such call place to Benton. So we'll see. The story sounds super fishy to me, but we'll see. Sounds mostly like it is just New York politics. And I'm not trying to be dismissive of, claims of sexual assault or anything like that happens in under these environments. But this whole thing has been just like one big hit job, one right after the other. All right, let's see what you have to say about this over from watchingthewatchers.locals.com. And I have to pull up these questions because my screen died on me. So let's pull this up and give me a quick minute to get the questions in order. Let's do this, 5210. All right, so a lot of questions on the Cuomo stuff. I'm going to queue these back up. I apologize for the delay here, my friends. Sometimes Chrome just crashes on me. Got a lot of screens open and going. Our first one here, no, that was from Nancy Pelosi's fun bags. Sergeant Bob says, regardless of the facts, this case will be tainted by the political agenda of that illegitimate New York Attorney General. Further, a misdemeanor level charge is no big feather in her cap. That's a good point, Sergeant Bob. Basically saying like, oh, great. If Attorney General Letitia James, that illegitimate Attorney General, if she wants to claim this is a big, gigantic victory because you indicted the former governor, not really, right? It's a low-level misdemeanor, essentially, is what it is. Geomancy Game says, can't stay for the whole show, so I'll watch the rest later, but just wanted to say, I am absolutely shocked to see the Me Too movement completely evaporating in the wake of Democrats winning in major elections over the past year. Just getting not really shocked, just tired of the Democrat hypocrisy. That is from Geomancy Games. He's over on YouTube as well. We have Monster One says, oh no, a misdemeanor. Basically a parking ticket half the time. They don't even show up on background checks. How about we get him for murder of what, all the senior citizens that they just treated like COVID disposables? The Last Villain says, Cuomo sounds like young Biden when he grabbed that woman by the P. Brandon, allegedly. Would Cuomo, have to be put on a sex offender registry for a misdemeanor sex crime? So I don't know it specifically out of New York, but I can't imagine that he would. for a misdemeanor, right? It's a fairly low level offense, at least here in Arizona. Like we had an analog here would be like, urinating in public, right? People, oh, well, you took your genitals out and urinated in public. Should you be added to the registry? No, it's a misdemeanor. It involves a sex organ, but that doesn't make you automatically have to register. Thunder7 says, this is a big cover-up for his real crime, pushing the elderly who were sick into nursing homes to kill them to drive the COVID death numbers up. Other Dems did it too. Whitmer, Gruesome, Murphy, all to blame Trump. They all should be charged with manslaughter or homicide. Here we have this misdemeanor charge, which is titillating, but actually a nothing burger. Titillating. Don't use that word enough here on this channel. Letitia James says, I want to be governor someday, so I offered Cuomo a deal he couldn't refuse. Resign, take this slap on the wrist, or face the consequences for the 15,000 people you murdered. Yeah, a lot of people on that one. I agree, right? And even when we were covering this, back when everybody was dogpiling on Cuomo, oh yeah, look what a creep show. It's like, yeah, we had fun with that. But at the same time, I'm like, these are all stupid allegations. Like, where's the big one? Where is what's the Harvey Weinstein allegation of, very awful, terrible stuff? This is just a creepy Cuomo is what he is. He defines himself. It's hard to even define him otherwise. But everybody in New York has known that. They've known it for a long period of time. The guy has been open and sort of cavalier about it. And now it's suddenly just, oh, well, he's dead to us, so we're just going to go wipe him out in the justice system. If they want to do that politically, that's fine. But don't bring in the criminal stuff unless it's a real crime. All right, Go Navy 505 says, I'm sorry, if someone puts their hands on you multiple times over the course of months, at some point, it is assumed it's consensual. Hate to defend Cuomo, but if she didn't pull away and tell him, keep your hands off me, this could easily be assumed that the encounters were consensual. Cuomo is still a scumbag, but not for this. Yeah, I'm perfect. Totally agree with that, right? I'm not condoning his behavior, but, it's a little bit curious that you get somebody like that who's, just kind of hangs around, right? Look, I know a lot of strong women in my life. And if somebody did something like that to one of these strong women, they'd scream at them and, yell at them, and that'd be the end of it, right? There wouldn't be, I'd hang around for another 10 months getting molested on a regular basis. And then only complaining about it when everybody else does. And it becomes this political spectacle, right? It seems very like she's got an ulterior motive. Former LEO says, I guess that law was written prior to the building of the New York City subway system. Some days riding home from high school after exiting the subway felt like I needed a cold shower and a cigarette. Didn't matter if you're a girl or a guy. A lot of old perverts rode the subway. Never had that experience in New York City subway system. Doesn't sound all that entertaining. For me, maybe for some people. He says, hey Rob, just wanted to see if you bought your Vax necklace yet. Like New York Governor Kathy Hochul. I'm vaccinated, and you're my apostles. Go out there and spread the good word of the needle in arms. What a lunatic. Like an actual lunatic. I don't know how else to say it. I'm Not Gas says, Rob, you need to believe all women, even if she waits 10 years to come forward after receiving favorable benefits, promotions, compensations in exchange for acts of a sexual nature, even if she continues to meet her predator over and over again without any signs of discomfort or complaint, even if she only comes forward when it's politically expedient and favorable to jump on the bandwagon. God, you are such a bigot, such a bigot. Obviously, this woman was so horrified by Cuomo that she continued to voluntarily meet him and go into rooms in private with him for years. There was no way for her to escape. Total victim. I mean, you got to really feel for her. She probably, was probably just confused, didn't know what to do. What a joke. Soul Viking says, I am against rape, sexual harassment, and so on, but Brittany appears to be an opportunist, mingle mama full of drama. Little doubt Cuomo and his large hand, according to Brittany, has done much of what has been alleged. Soul Viking. Mingle mama full of drama. Oh my goodness. That's true. Yeah, it's becoming like that. Joey Bondolero says, you don't just not notice a hand going up your blouse until it's cupping your breast. Give me a break. It's a great point, right? She's going like, he's like coming up. She's like, oh, what's going on here? Oh, that's weird. What's going on up here? Oh, what's this? Oh, grabs it. And suddenly well, now I'm offended. I wasn't offended when you were near my belly button, but now since you're covering my nipple, this is now assault. And I'm shocked. Stop it, please. Right? What is happening? Let's see what else we've got. Old cat lady, not grouchy today, says definitely he's a creep, definitely inappropriate behavior, but I'm old school. Doesn't rise to the level of criminal behavior. I'd put him in his place and leave it at that. That's exactly what I'm talking about. I was just saying that, right? Old cat lady, right? Tough as nails. Get your hands off me or I'm going to backhand you, Cuomo. He goes, all right, yeah, sorry about that. And it's resolved. You don't need to bring, criminal justice systems into it. The last villain says, I would agree usually about her and be skeptical, but I saw all those Me Too organizations bend into pretzels to protect him. She would have been Lewinsky. It happened, and she is in on the plot. Both are probably true. That's a good take on that. The last villain. Yeah, there's, look, I think it's all sort of political jockeying, moving chess pieces around and things like that. Everybody wants a book deal. Everybody wants a new cause to go and be a part of. Okay. Monster One says, yeah, she wanted it. She just didn't want to get caught. Right. She didn't want to get caught. She wasn't upset about, she didn't say, that was offensive to me personally, that he wanted to grab my breasts. We're not in a relationship. I'm married. I have a husband. I have all sorts. I'm a professional woman. I have self-respect. That was inappropriate. She said, I didn't want the staff to hear. He shut the door very loud. Somebody was going to come up and see us. Vientica says, all the stuff in this list that are basically an indication of Cuomo being from an older generation and in a different culture seem to just diffuse the items that are more sexually aggressive. It also serves to demonize platonically, physically affectionate customs, putting a further divide amongst people. Things like that are really best handled on a one-on-one basis because people are different. I also agree with you on the idea that things just seem a little too convenient. It's very convenient, yeah. And it was all sort of like organized, like orchestrated. And he was gone. Creepy Cuomo says, she is kind of cute though, right? Yeah, she's not bad. When I was growing up. I'm not going to read that. Sweet Potato says, did you catch the part where she was describing what happened and she said, and I was like, Governor. She didn't say, knock it off, Andrew Drew. She calls him Governor, like it's The Walking Dead. Yeah, she's enamored with him, right? It sounded to me like she was flirting with, like, Governor, stop. Like, stop. Like, somebody's going to see us, You know how it is out there. You know how it goes. Old Catwoman says, calculated how much money would have been saved on Medicare and Social Security by killing off the elderly. Got to pay for social programs somehow. That is serious nefariousness there. Hopefully that is not the deal. KK Khaleesi K says, I feel like she has buyer's remorse, like she consented, changed her mind like fellow Twitch viewer Immortal Cutie said. Also, of course, she gave more details for TV. Obviously, she's never been to a nightclub with her, quote, most aggressive comments. Why is she working for him for almost another year? He got on the bad side of the Dems, found a drama llama mama to complain against him. Yeah, Mingle Mama, full of drama, as we heard. KK, good comment. Thanks for being here. Sergeant Bob says, President Trump supplied a huge hospital ship, which Cuomo could have easily used. He preferred to kill a bunch of old people due to his politics. There's a lot of truth to that, I think. I mean, it was really a weird thing that happened with him. Remember, they were glorifying him every which way you turned. He was giving these press conferences. Didn't he win an Emmy or something like that? I mean, what a joke. Somebody says, let's send Ice-T and the rest of the SVU crew over there to find out what really happened. Dun dun. Bum, 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 dun, bum. I'm onto it. Monster One says, the way she was worried about getting caught seems to me like they were in a relationship, but she didn't want it in their professional setting. She was probably going to hotels with him. Yeah, I'm sure there's a lot more to that story. Oh, you cut my breasts and I'm just offended by it. You worked there for years. And there were also some other women that got promotions and stuff. Like somebody went from an executive assistant to policy advisor on green energy. You're going, what? So you know what's going on over there. Vienticus Prime says, even though I understand the psychology behind it, some of these situations where women do nothing just seem so weird to me. It probably has to do with when I was a kid and accidentally put my hand on a girl's breast riding the bus. When it turned, she slapped me and yelled at me, and I apologized. I just pointed out because of how a polar opposite result happened. Vienticus, you little molester, you. How could you do something like that? Well, look. Fortunately, your situation got resolved as it probably should have. It sounds like it was an accident. Like you were in the bus and, the bus driver hit the brakes and you went, oh, I'm sure that's not how it happened. I believe you. I'm sure it was an accident. I'm sure. Totally an accident. No problem at all there. But you got what you deserved. So that's just how it is. Bernie Sanders says, Rob, you are a lawyer. What's the legal difference between Mingle Mama and Hoochie Mama? That's a good question. I think Hoochie Mama is what Kramer from Seinfeld said, and Mingle Mama is what Cuomo from Seinfeld said, both set in New York, both interesting fellas. One is a criminal molester. The other is just a hilarious comedian who's kind of a racist. We've got another question from former LEO says, at one time, this was fixed by casually mentioning it, your boyfriend or your significant other. Yeah. Yeah. And, like affirmatively acting and saying, how dare you, you creep, don't ever do that again. That's not appropriate because I'm an adult person with language and communicative faculties and boundaries and stuff like that. Former LEO says, at one time, already got that one. Good to see you, former. A couple more before we jump into the next segment. Mustang Jeff says, about time Cuomo was charged. Nothing will ever come from this, just saying. Yeah, probably not. Sweet Potato says, calling him governor like, oh, Cuomo, oh, Mr. Cuomo, teacher, what can I do to get better grades? Definitely role-playing consensual vibes. Sweet Potato knows about it. We have, let's see, the Cuomo-sexual Stephen Colbert says, I wish he would have touched me like that. Which is true. I mean, a lot of people were basically in very similar relationships with Cuomo. Remember the Cuomo-sexuals and all the songs about my love for Cuomo, I want to be like Cuomo. Weird times. Anyways, those were amazing questions. Great conversation from our friends over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com, where we record this show and you get to be a part of it, which is what makes it so special. So come check us out, watchingthewatchers.locals.com. All right, we're going to jump into our next segment. Let's see what we've got coming up here. Oh, yeah. I just sort of realized this, but we're talking a lot about New York stuff today. So we're talking now about the New York Police Department. Mayor Bill de Blasio came out with a very aggressive vaccine mandate, something that's going to go into effect very soon, and it's going to cause a lot of different permutations or aberrations throughout New York City. In particular, the idea is that maybe 20% of police officers are no longer going to be showing up to work. We're going to start off with a headline from the New York Times. Says that New York plans for shortages of police officers and firefighters as the vaccine deadline nears. And so we have spent a lot of time on this channel talking about New York, basically saying that this is the canary in the coal mine, right? We saw this even last year when COVID was ramping up. Who was the first to lock down? New York was, right? They had the big surge there. And so as New York has gone, so has other parts of the country. And New York comes out with a key to NYC. Then it spreads over to San Francisco, then to LA, and around we go. And so it's always been the canary in the coal mine. We've always been sort of speculating that so goes New York, so goes the rest of the nation. And it's starting here. We have a very, very aggressive vaccine mandate that is now going into effect. And these so-called essential workers are now all in the chopping block. And they are actually planning for this, like it's coming very soon. So New York is literally planning for shortages of police officers and firefighters. That's a pretty big deal in my mind, right? You're going from a society that has enough police and firefighters to one that does not anymore. In the stroke of a pen by some bureaucrat named Mayor Bill de Blasio. Officials in New York, this came out October 28th. Officials in New York, they are bracing for staffing shortages. They're overhauling schedules. They're making contingency plans amid fears that thousands of police officers and firefighters could stay home when the vaccine mandate for workers takes effect on Monday. Mandate by de Blasio requires city workers to get at least one shot or go on unpaid leave. But workers at some agencies have resisted this, which is what we're going to talk about here. 65% of fire department, 75% of police department have received at least one dose. So that leaves pretty big swaths of both agencies that don't have the shot. De Blasio, a Democrat in his second term, predicted on Thursday that everybody would get the shot at the very last minute, but clock is running out. De Blasio said, not having second thoughts, we expect that a lot of the vaccinations would happen towards the end of the deadline. We also know a lot of people make the decision once they realize they're not going to get paid this piece of garbage. Threatening people with their salaries and their income. Go get the jab, otherwise you don't get paid anymore. Because he is their boss now. He runs their lives now. He gets to tell what happens in consensual employment relationships now. Nearly all city workers are required to submit proof of vaccine by Friday evening, my friends. That is 24 hours from now. They cannot report to work on Monday without it. So that clock is ticking. Here was New York Police Department Commissioner Dermot Shea. He's out there and he is hitting the airwaves. Here he was on a local affiliate out in New York, basically begging, all right, or we're not at that clip yet. Here he's going to tell us about, I'm not sure if I got that clip in general. Anyways, here he is. He's talking about the total number of police officers who are in fact vaccinated. We're going to hear a number like 70, 73, 75%, and then we're going to break down that number. Is that really what we're talking about? Is it are they really showing up on Monday with 25, 27% less police? Here is the commissioner of New York.
Workers to comply with the vaccine mandate just 2 days away. So where this morning does the NYPD stand in terms of vaccination rates?
As of yesterday, Dan, it's 73%. I think yesterday in one day we did 800 is the number I got. I don't know what happened late yesterday into this morning. This is a minute by minute at this point. We're going to have vaccination sites open through the weekend for the NYPD.
Okay, so yeah, it's like, hey, go get it. Okay, we're going to keep everything open, 73%, and you're thinking that's a lot, right? So now you got 27% of people who are on the police department that may not be coming to work on Monday. Now, what if DeBlasio's right? What if, yes, a huge swath of people go, they follow the commissioner's perspective on this, and let's say you get half of those people who get vaccinated. Okay, so you take your 27, cut that in half, you got like, what, 13.5% left? So can you kind of show up to work at your job or your profession and just, 10 to 15% of the people are just gone? Can you carry on? I don't know, probably, but probably not easily. So we take a look at those numbers now, and you say you got, 10, 13% less cops on the street if it really is 73% or whatever that is. But when you break those numbers down, you can see some interesting changes here. So the commissioner posted this over on Twitter, said, thank you for all of your work. Because of your efforts now, we're now 75% vaccinated. So that number is still climbing. Maybe you get up to 80 or 85% by the end of tomorrow. I don't know. But when you break those numbers down, here's what you see. 75% of the NYPD, that includes only 63% of the street cops, right? So the people who are actually on the streets, they don't want the jab. 37% of those people, or 6,000 officers, are still unvaccinated. 6,000 cops, 63% of the street cops have gotten it, so 37% of them are not. And so now you take that number and you cut that in half, and now you're like 18 to 20% of officers. So how does New York survive with 18 to 20% of their police gone? One Manhattan cop said the expected results of the benching patrol officers for ignoring the vaccine mandate is pretty predictable. It's an easy formula. Less cops equals more crime. And this is a self-imposed thing that's happening out of New York. They're just saying, no, I mean, COVID's more important than police, jobs, crime, all that stuff. So we'll see where that goes. Now, here is what they are doing. The New York Commissioner, Dermot Shea, is already hinting. It's like, listen, we're doing everything we can possibly do. They're bracing for a shortfall. They know it's coming. And so he gets asked about, well, how are you going to handle this? What happens if 20% of people don't show up, or it's higher than that? If you're using the 60-something% number, what happens if 30% of your uniformed street police officers don't come to work on Monday? What are you going to do about it? Here's what he says.
To go up by this weekend, there is still potentially hundreds, if not thousands, of officers being put on unpaid leave when this goes into effect who may not get that vaccine. Are you preparing for potential shortages here on the streets?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's a very real possibility. I'll be doing a video clip to the members of the NYPD as soon as this interview ends. Just send one last one. We'll be sending, again, notifications to people that our records say don't have the vaccination. And then we're planning for contingencies at the same time. So it's very much a topic in the inner circle here.
What are some of those contingencies? Are you looking at overtime, double shifts?
Absolutely, all of the above.
Are any additional resources being brought in from anywhere else in the state, or that's not a possibility?
No, we'll handle it here, and New Yorkers will be safe.
All right, and I want to talk about school safety now. Hot topic during.
All right, so they bounce off to something else. But you could hear what he said, right? That was a big question that I had because Governor Hochul came out and said, well, after they let all the nurses and medical personnel go, then they're going to bring in the National Guard. We covered that here. And you're going to get all these untrained individuals coming in and helping people with routine medical care. Sounded kind of like an insane thing to do to sort of wreck your own industries, but that's what New York is doing. And this guy, he comes out and says, no, we're going to handle it ourselves. We're just going to, overtime, we're just going to double book people. They're reaching out, asking people who have been retired to come in and, sort of put the uniform back on and get back out there because they have done this to themselves. Am I in crazy town over here? All right. So they have, made some policy changes that are causing a third of their workforce in firefighters, fire departments and police departments to just decide we're done. We're not going to participate anymore. And I guess that's one way to run a society. So the New York Police Department's union, they wanted to stop this from happening so that they could keep their members employed, keep the police officers who have been serving their communities throughout the pandemic, keep them employed, stuff like that would be useful. They filed a lawsuit to stop this. They asked the judge to put a hold on the upcoming deadline. So we know the deadline happens tomorrow, Friday. It's got to be done. You got to get the jab. Otherwise, don't come to work on Monday. They wanted to stop that. So they asked the court for a temporary restraining order to say, Judge, look, if you allow this mandate, this order from DeBlasio to go into effect, it's going to be a big problem for us. And so can you please just hold it? Don't delete it. Just put a hold on it while we can sort through some of this stuff. Turns out the judge said no. Let's take a quick look at some background here. The police union, they filed a lawsuit on Monday, very emergency type of Monday, because the mayor previously on Wednesday ordered all city employees, show proof of the vax or you're on unpaid leave. Or, get out. Union was not happy about that. So the Police Benevolent Association of New York on Twitter said they filed a lawsuit in the state court. They asked for a temporary restraining order to halt the mandate while the rest of the suit moves forward. They were very upset about this. They basically say that all of these policies that just came out from the mayor's office give us no guidance. Mayor set a deadline 5 p.m. this Friday for all employees to show proof of inoculation. Over 70% of all New York workers have done so, the mayor said. So 30% of people maybe are not coming to work on Monday. President of the PBA, the Police Benevolent Association, represents 50,000 active and retired workers, so they sued. De Blasio said overtime, redeployments are contingency plans. They're going to take care of that. So they're doing all of that. Now, you can see this fella. This is Patrick Lynch. He is the president of the PBA, the Police Benevolent Association. He said, this was his claim. This is why he's sort of, upset about what's happening here. He says, I'm writing to provide you with more information about de Blasio's vaccine mandate. We filed a request for a temporary restraining order. We are the first union to file suit over last week's mandates. As our suit moves forward, there are obviously many questions about how the Friday deadline will impact unvaccinated members. Got a bunch of police officers who don't know what to do. NYPD's leadership, he says, is failing to answer any of those questions. As of this writing, less than 5 days before the mandate is supposed to take effect, there is still no written, no NYPD-specific policy guidance on how the mandate will be implemented. Despite Commissioner Shea's repeated public statements in support of the mandate, there was apparently zero planning for the mandate to become a reality. Over the last several days, we've been bombarded by people. We've bombarded the brass about this, but it's clear the NYPD is being run directly by Mayor Bill de Blasio and his advisors. This chaotic environment is one of the arguments we're using to halt this. NYPD members are frustrated. We're trying to make important, possibly life-changing decisions while our leaders keep us in the dark, perhaps intentionally. Going to keep fighting as a union, stop this irrational mandate, and fight for their union members, of course. But a judge came out today. No dice. Sorry. You don't get to contest this any further. So the order will go in effect. A Staten Island judge denied PBA's attempt. The judge, her name is Lizette Colan, and says that she presided over the case. She gave no explanation in her ruling denying the police association their motion for a temporary restraining order. No explanation at all. Because the small peasants out there, like you and me, we just got to follow orders. Follow orders. So we have a judge comes out. Nope, sorry. Thanks for your request. Not going to happen. So this judge basically put a end to their hopes. Friday at 5 p.m. New York time, DeBlasio's order is going to be allowed to go into full effect. Nothing's going to stop it unless some other judge does something about it. This judge certainly is not going to do it. So Patrick Lynch over from the Union said today's ruling sets the city up for a real crisis. The haphazard rollout of this mandate has created chaos in New York Police Department. City Hall given no reason that a vaccine mandate with a weekly testing option is no longer enough to protect everybody, especially while cases continue to fall. Instead, police officers are being told to make a possibly life-changing decision in a matter of days to meet a completely arbitrary deadline while the NYPD's leadership spins its wheels and offers no guidance. This not only violates police officers' rights, inevitably will lead to fewer cops available to protect our city. PBA will continue to fight the fight. We'll immediately appeal this ruling, but New Yorkers should know who to blame for any shortfall in city services. Mayor Bill DeBlasio, Police Commissioner Shea, and other bureaucrats who are putting politics before public health and public safety. Which it honestly feels like they're just being, jerked around. Like the elected officials are just jerking around these industries. He's right. I mean, it's a pretty serious complaint. Mayor DeBlasio comes out 1 week ago. You have to do this. How do you actually roll out a policy like that that's just mandate? Well, you see how it's working. And a lot of people are probably going to not go to work on Monday. Now, for those officers who are looking for an alternative, fortunately, there is one. They're already very familiar with it. They know Florida quite well. Ron DeSantis saying, all those police officers who were disaffected there in New York and other parts of the country, come on down to Florida because we're going to give you a fat bonus of $5,000. Here he is.
Well, first, I think it's important to point out on a scientific basis, most of those first responders have had COVID and have recovered. So they have strong protection. And so I think that influences their decision on a lot of this, that they have already had it and recovered. And so they're making no accommodations for that. They're still pretending like that doesn't even exist. And so that's really, really troubling when you see that. But I can tell you, Maria, in Florida, not only are we going to want to protect the law enforcement and all the jobs, we're actually actively working to recruit out-of-state law enforcement because we do have needs in our police and our sheriff's departments. So in the next legislative session, I'm going to hopefully sign legislation that gives a $5,000 bonus to any out-of-state law enforcement that relocates in Florida. So NYPD, Minneapolis, Seattle, if you're not being treated well, we'll treat you better here. You can fill important needs for us, and we'll compensate you as a result.
Come on down to Florida. It's a little free market America right there, isn't it? You can just have, whatever sort of COVID policies you want, just pick up, go to a different state. I like it. We also have Fox News telling us that it might actually be working. Police officers are fleeing New York for careers in Florida after the bonus. 12 former NYPD officers have already started careers with the Lakeland, Florida police. Officer Hector Lopez is one of 12 former NYPD officers recently left the liberal state, start their careers in Florida. The growing anti-police sentiment in New York has driven away thousands of officers in recent years. And I've been saying this was going to happen for a long time here on this channel, right? Why? Why would you stay there? If Portland is going to say that you're all racist murderers, go, leave. They don't have to stay there. Lopez grew up in Bronx, worked as an NYPD officer for 6 years, decided to move to Florida. He saw potential there. In addition to Florida's lack of state tax, Ron DeSantis said $5,000 for other police officers. He says, if you're not being treated well, we'll treat you better here. Come on down. Lopez hasn't received his bonus, but he's been assured that he will. Governor said that it's a great opportunity, could be very win-win. So we'll see if there's this, we talk about the great sorting of America. A lot of people are regrouping. A lot of different boundaries are being redefined. Let's see what you have to say about this over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. All right, let's see what we've got over here. Any thoughts on this segment? First one from Jay Heath says, DeBlasio should have offered more than free French fries if he wanted more frontline workers to get vaxxed, LOL. I can't wait until he gets replaced. That's from Jay Heath. Yeah, he's in his last term, right? Sergeant Bob says, not a lawyer, but I think the cops must show up for work and then be denied the opportunity to work. That was the FOP direction in Chicago. Interesting. Yeah, okay, so I see. So don't sort of acquiesce to their, don't be compliant with their demands. Say that the demands are unlawful. I'm showing up to work as ordered, as I ordinarily would. And if you're going to deny me, then you're in breach of the underlying agreement, not us. I like that. I think that makes sense. Thank you for that, Sergeant Bob. There's a lot of different unions and different police agencies to follow because this is happening all over America, unfortunately. Old Cat Lady says approximately 36,000 New York City policemen, 20% is 7,200. That's one way to defund the police. This will backfire on them. I agree, right? That's a lot of people. That's a big deal. Any big organization like that, you just wake up and 1/5 of your team is gone. It's going to have a lot of consequences. But maybe that's what they want. And thanks for doing the math for me because I'm terrible at that. We have John Halgren says, telling the NYPD and the FDNY what to do seems like a good plan. You asked, how does New York survive? DeBlasio's resignation. Yeah, but it's like, do the people there really want a different system? Are there people? Well, I guess they are. They're protesting out there on the streets, right? I'm sure that not every New Yorker is okay with this. But I don't know. Mustang Jeff says, no wonder there is a mass exodus from New York. Sad to see, but it's the new normal. I talked to Joe Neerman, Good Logic over on YouTube, and he said that. Right? I think I did an interview on his channel with him, and he was communicating. He said that it's like dead there. He actually lives on the outskirts of New York City. Let's see. Mayor Lightfoot is here. Says, does this mean that New York will now overtake Baltimore and Chicago, #1 shootings and fires? Probably. Let's go Chicago is what they're saying. Yeah, Mayor Lori Lightfoot. Let's see. We've got another one from Speech Unleashed. Says, my husband's employer just sent out a letter that all of their employees must be fully vaccinated by December 8th or submit to HR by November 15th an agreeable schedule for obtaining their full vaccine. They have to do this because they have federal contracts. Biden is getting around OSHA by having this mandate added to the safer federal workforce requirements. Bet this back door won't be reported in the mass media. That's interesting, Speech. We talked about some of this in the context of Southwest Airlines. Remember them? And that was coming up during that altercation, right? People were a little bit confused as to why Southwest Airlines, sort of the more, of the free airlines, people who were sort of like, well, we do things differently here. We don't just, do lockstep like the other airlines do. Why did they just come out and impose the vaccine mandate for all of their employees? People were kind of surprised by that. And other people were speculating it's because of exactly what you mentioned, Speech. Safer federal workforce requirements. Southwest got a lot of money, I think like $30 billion from the federal government. And that money ain't free. It comes with some strings attached, as they found out. The Antica says, it's obvious no one is upset about the mandates. I mean, sure, there were some people protesting the other day, but that was nothing. It might have been hundreds, but definitely wasn't thousands. Yep, totally not thousands of people protesting. So no one's really upset. We can all just carry on normally. I've seen a lot of the protests, actually. Looks like thousands. I think he was being facetious there. Go Navy says, until people stand up and throw down the gauntlet or the Democrats are trying to get reelected, this insanity continues. Yeah, I mean, it's like they're about to lose 30% of their police and firefighters. Is there anything else that... Where are the people standing up about that? The deadline's tomorrow. Weird. Former LEO says, being an LEO is not generic and going into the projects is slightly different from chasing kids off a lawn. I just wonder what that moron has in mind to replace experienced NYPD officers. When we walked out, they took the officers who hadn't been on the street in years. They got in cars, they hid out all day long. The dopes in the press put out headlines that crime went down. They should have clarified it and said the reported crime went down because the crimes didn't get reported. All this is bluster, is self-serving BS. They're going to need more than Barney Fife. Ooh, that's a pretty ominous prediction there, former LEO. I think you're exactly right. It's going to be a big reckoning soon enough. Look2G says, nice seeing you, Rob. Right back at you, Look2G. Glad you're here. Says, I feel like if I was playing 4D chess or I was a Noam Chomsky acolyte, I might think these mandates are being used to purge officers who are less agreeable to following orders blindly. Seems like after the purge, they may have an excellent group of officers unwilling to question their commanders. I think there's a very astute observation, Look2G. Same argument that we were making here about the military, right? It's very similar here. The military, they came out with all of these mandates, and you know where this all kind of started was back after January 6th. Remember they wanted the National Guard to come in, and they threw them all in the bottom of a parking lot and said, here, you just disgusting grunts, why don't you just sleep there right on the concrete while we wander around up at the Capitol building and pat ourselves on the back for surviving an insurrection. When all of that happened, the Biden administration was very concerned that some of those people might have voted for Donald Trump. Could you believe that? And so they were going to go and start asking questions and sort of, bifurcating the military into the Trumpers and the rest of them. So yeah, it makes total sense. If you're going to purge the military and you're going to start sort of, reshaping America according to Build Back Better or the Great Reset, whatever these, whatever marketing plan these people are doing right now, you want uniformity amongst your troops, don't you? And this is a good way to get that. We have Sergeant Bob says, pay generally lower in Florida, but at some point, pay does not matter. And you got to remember, right, there's some pretty good tax incentives down there as well. No state income tax. Ron DeSantis says, come on down to Florida and join that one Florida man. The weather is better. I've been looking at Florida. I kind of like the idea of Florida. A lot of water. I've been in Arizona my whole life. No water. It's a desert here. So water kind of sounds attractive. And I can't go to California. That place is a dump. Monster One says, not one to blindly follow the police, but hold the line, hold the line, hold. Yeah, I'm with you on that, Monster One. Thoughts and prayers with everybody over there. Former LEO says, I saw a clip on Dan Bongino's show of Joy Reid losing her mind over the DeSantis offer. I haven't seen that, but I love watching Joy Reid lose her mind. She does it a lot. Alec Baldwin says, I'm is that on this segment? Yeah, I say here. So I'm triggered by how people who are not vaccinated in the NYPD. It grinds my gears that these officers are not taking the shot like I did. I'm available and willing to help, locked, loaded, and ready to go. Alec Baldwin's getting back on the horse. A couple more. Chairman of the board says, whether you like DeSantis or not, you have to admit that was a brilliant move. And he's right. Most of them probably have natural immunity that is superior to the jab anyways. The fact that they won't accept natural immunity in place of the shot shows that they are not about following the science. That's from chairman of the board. Right. Or other things, right? Like health. Like nobody's really talked about health other than just going and getting the jab. Would be useful if we had other conversations. Soul Viking says, strange that New York City is requiring just one dose of one of the vaccines, considering that it is not considered fully vaxxed or booster vaxxed at this point. Pathetic and disgusting. Well, they got to start somewhere. You're going to be on your 4th, 5th, 6th booster subscription service. Amazon Prime is just going to drive it right into your neck there. I'm ready, DeBlasio. Hit me again. Zing. Again. Zing. All right. And so, yeah, you're right. Subpar. Kind of sounds subpar, doesn't it? Sweet Potato says, okay, so 1 million questions. So isn't one of the backup plans using the National Guard? So I've heard that for the healthcare stuff. Governor Hochul did talk about that. And I can guarantee you this, if disorder comes about, right, if stuff really does break down, yeah, they're going to bring the National Guard in. What else are they going to do? Let the city burn? No, they're on call. So where do they keep getting so many National Guard members from to filling them in? Nurses, cops, etc. Don't the National Guard have a job to do normally? So you're taking them away from their primary duties? Yes. So it seems like vaccine mandates are more of a threat to public safety, right? Or am I getting put on a list for using my brain and putting these questions in writing? The latter. Yeah, the latter. You're now on a list. You're a domestic terrorist. And basically, it's the end of the line, Sweet Potato. I don't know what else to say. All right, let's move on. We have Vianticus Prime says, is it too morbid to call the times we live in COVID culling, considering all the mandates, the barbaric frothing at the mouth by some people over people who don't get jabbed? Also, I never buy into bonuses. I want to see the stuff on paper. Remember the $2,000 checks? That's from Vianticus Prime. Culling, well, it's resorting or like filtering, right? You're sort of filtering people out. Not that we're killing them, but Nadarb says, what about the fact that Comirnaty or whatever is approved? You cannot go to a doctor. Barnes says they're, legally different. If this turns out to be true, wouldn't this be a blatant violation of the law? Look, I don't think that they care at all about the actual vaccine, right? It's FDA approved as far as they're concerned. They don't care about any of that stuff. They don't care about objections. They don't care about religious, objections. They don't care about health objections. They don't care. It's their rule. It's their order now. So you go do it. Don't want to hear about it. De Blasio is not a doctor. And you know what's so amazing about these things? It's a mandate that doesn't even say, look, we think you should go talk to a doctor about it. If they said, hey, look, we're giving free consultations with a doctor, let us know. If they say that, no, maybe you have an autoimmune disorder or something wrong, that we're not going to force, there's none of that. Don't even go talk to a doctor. Don't even talk to a medical professional. Doesn't matter. Just go get it. Otherwise, you lose your job. It's a weird country to be living in. That's not normal. All right. And Ayn Rand says DeSantis is creating my dream super state from Atlas Shrugged with people who want to think for themselves and be free, except it's even better because it's not secret. Who is John Galt? We have Jeremy Matrita says, Rob, Florida is reminding everyone that states' rights come first. The free market is working as intended as people are free to live wherever they want. I love it. It's a good thing for now until the unvaxxed, aren't allowed to get on airplanes and travel across state lines. Go Navy says, did you hear the Navy got caught planning a blanket denial of all religious exemptions? Thank God I'm a veteran and not currently serving. I did not see that story, but I did see a lot of the stories that the SEALs were on a short list, that they're getting booted out too, right? The most healthy people probably in the country got to comply or else they're gone too. And I saw some hints that they were going to ask the SEALs to pay back all of the costs of their training. What a world. Monster One says, there was definitely more people protesting Netflix than the vaccine. At least that's what CNN said. Well, CNN's a very reputable source. You know that Anderson Cooper out there, very astute fellow. He reads from a screen very well. Very, very, very good reader. Ty Livin says, the pay may be less, but in Florida, so is the cost of living. That's a good point. And Ty Livin knows something about that because she's living. We have a chairman of the board says, this is going to get even more spicy when they start officially redefining what, quote, fully vaccinated means. Every study so far has shown that the protection of all vaccines aren't all equal, and it wanes. I've read some reports that some hospitals are now counting anyone vaxxed over 6 months ago as unvaxxed. In Canada, they have to start using the phrase adequately vaxxed. Interesting. Yeah, because there are different standards now, right? You've got the totally unvaxxed, but then you got the people who got the 1, and you got the people who got the 2. And now in some parts of the world, it's 3, right? I think in Israel, it's 3. And the CDC is already hinting at that, so we know we're next on that product ascension ladder. TOD Forever says, does this now mean that maybe some of the officers coming on are bad popo, maybe? Yeah, I would think so, right? You'd have to sort of expand or lower your standards or adjust some hiring practices, unless there's just a huge contingent of people that are like amazing people that just say, I want to be a police officer, and I happen to have all the requisite skills already in my toolbox. Isn't that amazing? I don't have to go learn anything. I was just sitting on the couch, but I'm ready and available now to go and fight crime in New York City. Where are those people? They don't exist. This is all just a slow motion train wreck disaster, which is not even that interesting to watch. Those were great questions from our friends over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Thanks for being a part of the show and chiming in on the chat. Keeps things lively. So come on and join us there at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. All right. And so we've got one final segment, a little bit of a lesser known story here, but let's see if we can see and break down what's happening here. A New York State trooper, guy by the name of Christopher Baldner, just indicted, charged with murder for killing an 11-year-old girl, Monica Goods. He was also charged with a number of different offenses from 2 different dates, and one of the dates has to do with a pit maneuver. So this is where a police officer will take their car, try to stop another fleeing car. Sometimes it stops the driver. Other times it causes a pretty serious crash. Something similar happened in this case, and a young girl was thrown from the vehicle and killed. Now this officer has been charged with murder. We're going to go through the case. We're going to take a look at what a pit maneuver looks like and review the actual indictment that came out of New York so we can see what Officer Baldner has been charged with and talk about the case as it moves forward. Here we have some background, some headlines from the New York Times. Says that the New York trooper was charged with murder after a high-speed chase resulted in the killing of a young girl 11 years old. Her name is Monica Goods. The officer rammed her family's car after a late-night traffic stop. So let's break this down. Not long before midnight, so late at night, December 22nd, New York State trooper stopped a car for speeding about an hour and a half north of Manhattan. Inside, we had the Goods family. Tristan was there with his wife, April, daughters Monica, 11, and Tristina, 12, heading north on their way to visit family for Christmas. In the exchange that followed, during the traffic stop, Mr. Goods and the trooper, Baldner, they began to argue. Mr. Goods, his lawyer said, asked to speak with a supervisor. Trooper Baldner responded by shooting pepper spray into the car, officials said. Okay, so you can take a quick minute there and probably guess that there's a lot more that happens in that altercation. I have a hard time believing that a uniformed police officer stops somebody. Oh, can I see your license and registration, please? I'd like to see your supervisor. Perfect. Let me hit you with some pepper spray. Right? It's not that cut and dry. I'm sure there's a lot more to this. We'll see if we ever learn what really happened. But it goes on. Fearing for his safety, his lawyer said, Mr. Goods drove off with his wife and 2 kids in the car. Trooper Baldner chased him at a high speed. When caught up to Mr. Goods, he rammed his car once and then seconds later rammed it again. Okay, this is the pit maneuver that we're going to see. Now, they don't call it a pit maneuver. They call it, ramming somebody with your car. The impact knocked Mr. Goods' car over the guardrail, flipped into Highway South lanes, his lawyer said. Vehicle flipped over several times, landed on its roof, tossed from the car as it tumbled. Monica Goods died. Monica's 11 years old. On Wednesday, Baldner, age 43, charged with murder, manslaughter, reckless endangerment in an indictment announced by our friend, New York Attorney General Letitia James. Letitia James. The anti-Trumper says that Trump is an illegitimate president. Remember all the facial tics? We know who she is. This is Monica Goods. This is the young girl who was killed. Rest in peace, Monica Goods. Prayers to her family. Thoughts out to everybody who is involved in this. Very tragic. So the question then becomes criminal charges for the officer, because the New York Times said that he just rammed this family's car twice, resulting in the death of Monica Goods. Letitia James from New York, we talk a lot about her. She was on Twitter. She says, today, New York State Trooper Christopher Baldner was arraigned for his role in the death of an 11-year-old girl, Monica Goods. Baldner's been charged with murder and reckless endangerment for allegedly using his police vehicle to ram a car that she was in, causing it to flip over. Police officers are entrusted to protect and serve, but Baldner violated that trust. While nothing will bring Monica back, we must hold law enforcement to the highest standards. We'll continue to seek justice in this case. Now, you probably haven't heard about it, have you? Let's learn a little bit more about Trooper Baldner. He's a 19-year veteran of the state police, turned himself into authorities early on Wednesday, arraigned at the Ulster County Court, held in custody pending a bail hearing next week. So he's in custody right now. Suspended without pay upon surrendering, according to a state police spokesman. Mr. Duffy, the spokesman, said, as with every state police investigation, our mission is to determine the facts, ensure that justice is served, even when it involves one of our own members. Accountability is critically important to our agency. And so why didn't we hear about this? There's a lot of other stories that are very similar like this that we heard, but this didn't really make national story. We didn't see a lot of body camera footage. We haven't really read many police reports. We haven't been able to see any of what happened to make a decision about who did what, correctly or incorrectly. Did the officer walk up to a family and just pepper spray them in the face? Did the family do something that maybe was inappropriate in their fleeing the scene? Did the officer ram their cars, or did he conduct a pit maneuver? Hard to say, but we haven't seen any evidence to support this one way or the other. Why not? Oh, well, it's because according to Hudson Valley 360, there is no footage of the traffic stop or the resulting chase. This is from the state attorney general's office. Last year, the legislature approved a bill requiring state police to provide its troopers with body cameras. Cuomo signed it into law, but that law did not take effect until April of this year when the state began deploying the cameras. So we will never see it. Civil lawsuits already been filed by different attorneys suing the government for wrongful death and damages. They're awaiting the appointment of different attorneys and things like that, but never going to see it because in the year 2019, the New York Police Department, the state troopers there, no body cams, no dash cams, nothing. And now we're seeing the consequences. One of their own officers is being charged with murder. I'm sure he doesn't think that he murdered that little girl. So it'd be very useful for him in his defense to have some cameras. But for some reason, it took a long time for them to be able to integrate something as simple as this into their protocols. Anyways, what is a pit maneuver? So did this officer actually ram the car, or did he try to stop the car? We don't know. But before we look at the indictment and break down the facts, let's make sure that we all understand what an actual pit maneuver is. It's not a pit stop like in a racetrack, but it is a pit maneuver. It stands for Pursuit Intervention Technique, PIT. It's a pursuit tactic by which a pursuing car can force a fleeing car to turn sideways abruptly, causing the driver to lose control and stop, developed by the police, Fairfax County Police Department in Virginia. Other interpretations are pursuit immobilization technique and all that stuff. Fishtailing, right? Probably you've seen that. One method, other methods of stopping a suspect, spike strips, tactical pursuit, all that stuff. This is what it looks like in a diagram. We're going to see a video here soon. But you can see, right, if a target like maybe the Goods family was fleeing, the officer would then approach the vehicle. And then under section 2, you see they make contact with the back rear of the vehicle. The target car starts to fishtail, as we often see in movies, and they flip around, right? And so they kind of get knocked off of the road. This is a scene from a sheriff's office doing actual training on this, right? You can see these are police vehicles. They train this maneuver all the time. It's not ramming, it's a pit maneuver. Let's see what this looks like. Hang on, that is very loud volume. Let me turn that down. They had their volume on super max here.
Today we're working on our overall driver training, vehicle dynamics, doing some pursuit training, some pursuit intervention training, some vehicle pinning training, just a little bit of everything today. Pit maneuver is a pursuit intervention technique that we use to successfully, hopefully, stop a pursuit. It's where we use our patrol car to induce a spin on the suspect vehicle to bring it to a stop. Today we got a couple cars donated from some local tow companies that we can use to keep the training as realistic as possible.
Actual
give
sheriffs.
the police officers the opportunity to do a pit on either side of the vehicle. You never know exactly which side of the vehicle you're going to be
watch the car.
Able to pit on. So we do a pit on the driver's side and the passenger side, which forces the vehicle to either the left or the right, depending. So we start them out doing that. We give them a short time frame, a short window that they have to induce the pit to make it as realistic as possible.
All right, so right, they're kind of screwing around out there. Like they actually practice this maneuver. It's something that happens regularly. So when we talk about it, right, we have to say, well, is it appropriate all the time? If you're going 130 miles down the freeway, are you supposed to try that? If you're in a situation where one car is speeding away at a high rate of speed, maybe you're on a freeway, maybe there's a situation where somebody might be able to go over a guardrail and kill everybody inside. Should you still do a pit maneuver under those situations? No, of course not, right? There are limitations to it. It's not applicable in every situation. Many of these factors relate to safety concerns, right? Different things. How about not doing it over speeds that are 35 miles per hour? Careful choice of the location. What if you're on the side of a cliff? How about if there's a bunch of other traffic oncoming, right? That car that we just watched in the video sped into the other side of the traffic, right? Onto oncoming traffic. Got to be careful for that. Police departments have potential liability for the injury and death of not only the occupants, but also bystanders. So they got to be very careful about these maneuvers. Most departments specify that the pit should only be used to stop pursuits that are immediately dangerous and ongoing, right? Why don't you just let them pull over or get caught by other police or whatever? The justification is always because if you let them go, they might injure somebody else, right? They might crash into some other people or commit some other crime or go murder somebody or whatever. So you have to stop them. You're weighing these different factors out. When possible, a minimum of 3 pursuers should be present when a pit is executed, right? So we've got some standards now. It's especially hazardous when the vehicle's bumpers are at significant different heights and things like that. At speeds below 35, it can be used on fleeing vehicles. If the legal parameters would justify, quote, less than lethal force against the driver, then you could use it. Because otherwise, a vehicle might be a deadly weapon, right? Vehicles all the time are considered murder weapons. It's called vehicular manslaughter. At speeds greater than 35 miles per hour, the technique still works, but it is potentially lethal and normally would be only used if lethal force is justified against all occupants, right? See that standard there? So we're talking about speed now as a distinguishing factor. It is best used when the drivers on surface streets and cornering high-speed motorists may kill innocent people, can sometimes be justified for that it can be justified for that offense. There is inherent difficulty, you can see, in justifying the use of pits since there may be unwilling or innocent passengers in the car, right? So now you've got another thing to think about. Well, what if the driver did something wrong? He's sort of writing his own future, right? He's fleeing. And so if you're concerned about that driver and you stop the vehicle using a pit maneuver and the driver gets injured, well, he kind of brought that on himself, right? Why was he fleeing in the first place? But what if you have an 11-year-old girl in the back? Now you have to think through that. Okay, so now that we know a little bit more about what we're talking about, let's look at the indictment. Not super long. A lot of it's going to be repeat because it's multiple counts. But you see in the people of the state of New York versus Christopher Baldner. Let's see if we can tease out what happened here. Grand jury came out by this indictment. They accuse him now of murder in the second degree. Murder. On or about December 22nd, 11:45 p.m. in the northbound lane of New York State Thruway in the vicinity of mile marker so-and-so. This individual, under circumstances evincing a depraved indifference to human life, recklessly engaged in conduct which created a grave risk of death to another person. At the time and date, he engaged recklessly in conduct consisting of ramming the back end of a 2017 Dodge Journey automobile in which Monica Goods was a passenger. Dodge Journey was traveling at a high rate of speed. Don't know what that speed is, though, with a New York State police vehicle that the defendant was operating, which caused the operator of Dodge Journey to lose control of the automobile, caused the Dodge to crash and roll over, thereby causing the death of said Monica Goods. That's all we got there, folks. That's it. Nothing else. No body cam, no footage, probably a police report. They may have what's called AVL data in the car. Don't know about that. It's called automatic vehicle location data. You can think of it like GPS. It will tell you sort of acceleration, deceleration, speed. It will tell you whether the officer had their foot on the gas or on the brake. I don't know if the cars are equipped with that out in New York. They didn't have body cameras, so maybe they don't have that either. But we don't know what the speed was. We also know that they're charging him with a second charge, manslaughter in the second degree. Same thing, December 22nd, another person. Who are they talking about here? Monica Goods. So manslaughter, so that she's also getting a manslaughter charge. We also have a third count. This is reckless endangerment. So this is likely going to be for other people in the car. Yeah, so same stuff, right? The rest of this, December 22nd, depraved indifference, recklessly engaged in conduct constituted of ramming the back end of a 2017 Dodge Journey. This time, this was the sister, the younger gal. I think she was 12. Tristina Goods was a passenger. Vehicle lost control. The fact that the officer caused the vehicle to lose control endangered Tristina Goods. We get a fourth count, same thing. This is going to be for the wife, a reckless endangerment charge for April Goods for the wife. Then we have the final fifth count. This is for, oh no, this is another one. Let's see, reckless endangerment. This is for Tristan Goods. Sixth count, Jonathan Mutho. Oh, this is a different date entirely. Okay, so this is what's going on. So all of these were for the Goods family. See, this is another one, December 22nd. Then we actually get a different date. So this one is September 2019. So something else happened here. Now, this is very interesting. So what you'll see sometimes in cases like this, if you don't have a lot of good data, like for example, this happens a lot in sexual assault cases. So let's say you have one male who's being accused of sexual assault against two women. Right. And just like this case, it's not going to be on body cam. It's not going to be recorded. Right. The guy's going to say it was totally consensual. And she's going to say, no, it was not. And so that might go to a prosecutor's office and a prosecutor says, well, look, I mean, did you get a rape kit done? No, you didn't. Did you talk to it? No, you didn't. Did anybody corroborate this? No. He, gets contacted by police. He lawyers right up. No conversation happens. And so prosecutor, it's a he said, she said case, more this is broad strokes. But it's not enough to prosecute, okay, if something happens like that. But then you get that same guy, and a year later, and another woman comes in and says the same thing as woman number one, and woman number one and woman number two. They don't know each other at all, right? Two independent witnesses, both making the same stories, same facts and circumstances. Took me to a restaurant, bought me a drink, don't know what happened, brought me home to his room, woke up the next morning, don't know what happened. And so, that's what happened. Same story, same background, same process. Prosecutor goes, okay, now I've got him. I've got two different people that individually maybe there's not enough, but if I combine the two, that's enough. And now I can make my case. I can convince the jury that this person has a a scheme here going on. Same thing happens here, maybe, right? Officer comes back, talks to Letitia James in the Attorney General's office, and says, it was a lawful pit stop. I've never intended for this to happen. I did everything by the books. Nothing's on camera. Nothing's being recorded. We don't have any technology here in New York City because we're living in the 1960s still. But we are now at the same problem, right? We have two people with two different stories about what happened. Nobody to corroborate it, no additional evidence. So what the county attorney here did, or the state, is they went and looked for another incident. They found one. September 2019, they say that he also did something problematic. 7:45 a.m., South Lane, New York, vicinity of mile marker. He also did the same thing, depraved indifference to human life. At that moment, he recklessly engaged in conduct the back end of a Dodge Caravan being operated by Jonathan Muthu, also traveling at a high rate of speed. Also caused the operator to lose control of the automobile, spin into the median, and crash against the guardrail. Created a grave risk of death, right? So reckless charge there. Another one here for Michael Molina, presumably somebody in the car that same day, September 6, 2019. Same concept there. And then our final count, third passenger in the same car, Class D felony, reckless endangerment, mile marker 93, September 6. Her name, Kelsey Sanchez. And so we sort of are comparing the two. Prosecutor took a look, said, oh, same thing here, right? Maybe he did that pit stop problematically back in September 2019. Maybe he did it again now in this new recent case with Monica Goods. That's enough. They can say this guy is doing this as part of an MO. He just likes to do this. He's done it recklessly before. That was borderline. He did it again. Now that justifies two sets of charges. And it's not just, reckless endangerment or anything like this. It's murder in the second degree. You can see County of Ulster, October 26, the people against Trooper Christopher Baldner, murder in the second degree, 1 count, manslaughter in the second degree, 1 count, and then 6 counts of reckless endangerment. That's for the 3 members who survived from the Goods family, as well as the 3 passengers in that other September 2019 case that fortunately did not die. So Jennifer Gashi, Assistant Attorney General out of Kingston, New York. Interesting case. Would be very useful if we could see what actually happened here for both sides. Wouldn't it be very useful? Right? And so I've never understood the argument from police or law enforcement that we shouldn't have body cameras. It's like, you people are hurting yourselves because these types of claims are going to come up. And now Chris Baldner has nothing to defend himself against. And I've said here on the show, the default, in my opinion, if the police agencies don't have body cameras to justify their use of force, then we don't just take their word for it just because they said so. And the prosecutor isn't going to buy that either. The reason why I hold that standard is because we have the presumption of innocence in this country. They've got to prove it beyond a reasonable doubt. That includes making good records of the allegations as they happen. That obviously did not happen here. And this guy's got a history of it. So let's see what you have to say about this on the Baldner murder indictment over from our friends at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. See if we've got any questions on this one. Couple in here. Let's see. Sergeant what? Let's see. The Last Villain says, did they have a seatbelt on her? Parents should be charged with reckless endangerment. Cult hit job, maybe? Always have to question based on the source. I don't know. It's a good question. I don't know if they had her seatbelted in or not. But, 11-year-old little girls, like even if she's in a regular adult seatbelt, cars flipping like this, she might have just been thrown out. Just awful. Old Cat Lady says, if that young child wasn't seatbelted in, does that make a difference under these circumstances? Could the parents be charged too? Probably, right? So when these types of things come up, if the parents, if the parents were negligent with their daughter, you could probably find a statute in New York that would be like, child neglect or child endangerment, right? As a parent, you've got an obligation to protect your child. If you just, put your 3-year-old at home for 4 hours, right? And they get into some poison and eat it. You're not like, well, kid should have known better, right? You get charged with that. It's being negligent in the upbringing of your child. And so something similar could happen here. But oftentimes what you see is in a situation like this, they're not going to charge the parents because that's really adding insult to injury for them, right? They just lost their 11-year-old daughter. They could, theoretically charge the parents with crimes. For example, unlawful flight from a police vehicle, something like that. If they were going to go that route, then maybe they could stack on charges also for the death of the daughter. But because they have decided not to do that, right, they're not going to split criminal charges amongst two sides. They're not going to charge the police officer and the family because it's stemming from the same incident, right? And if you do that, then the family's just going to say, well, we didn't do anything wrong. You charged the officer. The officer's going to say, well, I didn't do anything wrong. You charged the defendant or the family. So you have sort of this two competing charges, right? This is also something that happens a lot. Like, I don't see this happen oftentimes, but I have seen this a couple times in my career where you'll see a prosecutor who charges both people in a domestic violence case. And you're like, what are you doing? Because all that means is that both sides are going to just invoke their right to remain silent and nobody's going to talk and you're going to have to dismiss both cases. But I've seen prosecutors do that. Client will come in, well, they charged me, they arrested me and my girlfriend. And you go, oh, you both have been charged with crimes in the same DV case? Well, now you both have a very strong interest not to talk. And if you both don't talk, both of your charges are going to get dismissed. So why is the prosecution even bringing this? Doesn't make any sense. But old cat lady, my point is they're not going to charge the family because they've already lost somebody and they've already identified the officer as the problematic person there. So they won't do it. Look, 2G says, we have the technology. There is no reason why we don't have cameras on all officers, vehicles, jails, and prisons. Real justice requires real transparency. You're speaking my language, Look, 2G. You're speaking my language. I think that is absolutely right. And I think a lot of it is to defend the police and so that they can, justify their behaviors. But for some reason, they drag their feet on it. Let's see. We've got another question that just came in from Ty Livin. Says, gross negligence. If he had stopped the car, he would have seen the children within. I thought you showed us a video of this some months ago. That was from Ty Livin. I don't think I did. I don't think I showed a video of this one. I think, Ty Livin, you may be thinking about, there was another one that also happened, right? This happens from time to time. I did play another one similar to this, but not this one because I don't think there is any body camera footage on this one. So it sounds like he did stop the car. Yeah, so he stopped the car, walked up, pepper sprayed them, saw everybody in the vehicle, presumably, and then did it anyways. So, yeah, he got to consider the passengers. Former LEO says, if pits are policy, then the driver is responsible for having an unrestrained passenger. There you go, some good input. Former LEO in the house with some expertise. Love that. Jeremy Matrita says, if you want to avoid the pit maneuver killing your engine, drive a manual transmission and practice engaging your clutch at the right time. I used to play Need for Speed Porsche Unleashed. One of my favorite challenges was perfecting pulling a 360-degree spin while still moving forward. On a serious note, the officer was behaving recklessly, deserves to be tried. Heartfelt prayers to the family of the girl. That's from Jeremy. So Jeremy's given us some Need for Speed education on how to drive that Porsche Unleashed. Love that. Giving us some good details on that. We have Sergeant Bob says, great video on a pit, not a ram. Pit is not appropriate, as you note, at higher speeds. To do so puts it in a deadly force situation. Lower speed pit at the resting place of the suspect vehicle is predictable. Yes, speed used is key. Also, backup cars needed to contain the pitted car. Murder a little extreme. A lesser crime might be for better, but we have the illegitimate AG involved with all the facial tics. I added that, not Sergeant Bob. Do not see using this at higher speeds in this case, although more facts need to come out. Great analysis and coverage. I wonder what the police agency's general orders and training consist of. Our training in Portland was very good. I cannot recall the pit ever being used in an appropriate manner. Please read chapter 34 in my book on your Kindle for discussion on that. And that's from Sergeant Bob. And that is a great recommendation. And I will do that. I actually own that book. Let me see. Let's pull this puppy up here while we're on this topic. Hold on. Pause, everybody. We're taking a quick detour because Sergeant Bob is here, and he gave us some very good indication on what's going on in his book. And so what we're going to do now is, this is on Kindle. Where the heck is this book? All right, I'm going to pull this up. We're going to talk about this very soon. Sergeant Bob is going to not be on our November meetup, but he will be back here on I think our December monthly meetup. And so we'll have a conversation about this. Oh my gosh, where the heck is this thing? All right, I don't want to waste anybody's time on this. I have so many books in here. I was going to pull it up, Sergeant Bob, but I can't find it. All right. I can't find it. Too many books in there. I thought I could just find it. But Chapter 34, Sergeant Bob's book. We're going to get back to that. Thank you for that great information, Sergeant Bob. So I started to sort of go down this rabbit hole, the one that you mentioned about orders and training and all of that stuff. But New York is so difficult to find almost anything about any of that stuff. They have like different layers of convolution in all of their different websites. So we'll have to go back and do that if this case continues to progress. But the transparency aspect of New York is just highly problematic, and I don't like that. Monster One says, the driver asked for a supervisor. Sounds like a sovereign citizen to me. This is a case of an innocent road captain sailing their vessel and being harassed by a road pirate. If nobody ever had the joy of seeing the sovereign citizens video, I recommend Donut Operator, sovereign citizen videos. Okay, we have another one from Thunder 7 says, the cop did the same exact maneuver 2 times in the past to stop fleeing cars and he wasn't fired. How can the cop be charged when they are following the police protocol? Either change the protocol or don't charge him. It's very sad the young girl died, but her father who sped off is the one to blame. There's a lot more to the story than what the NY Toilet Times tells you, Rob. And you know this as a defense lawyer. Once again, it's the white supremacist cop who gets smeared and slandered. Letitia James, dad will probably scoop up $30 million. Letitia James, being the AG of New York, tells you there is no more justice for white cops anymore. I wish the cop had moved to Florida or Texas before this tragedy. That's from Thunder 7 in the house. Good question there. Good comment from Thunder 7. We have another one from Joey Bandolero. Says, whatever happened to the cop who pitted that car like 10 seconds after activating the emergency lights on that narrow highway? Yeah. That's a good question. I don't remember that one. I think that was the one that that Ty Livin actually brought up for us, and that was some time ago, but I don't recall whatever happened with that one. There's like so many of them that it's really difficult to keep track of all of the bad popo out there. But all right, we've got another one. Monster One says, seriously, why wasn't the child buckled in? It's a good question. I don't know. We don't know. There's no information about the case. There's no body camera. Nobody can see anything. Ty Livin says, I jumped the gun on this story, not gross negligence. As for my thoughts on the previous video, with my memory, I could have been remembering a movie scene, maybe one with Alec Baldwin. Yeah. So, and I also talked about that in my law enforcement interaction training program that we did here, that I'm sure several of you attended. But we talked about there was a case where there was I think we played that same one on that training, actually. Yeah, we did. We played it in that training, but it was not this one. Perry Masonary says, negligence. Only on the PD side, never the parents. They can do no wrong. A couple more. Monster One says, it's actually BLM and the other advocacy groups who are opposed to body cameras now. More police started using them, and it revealed most complaints against the police are BS. I think that's why they need them. Well, that's why we all need them. Farmer's Daughter 4 is here. Says, hello, Robert and Friller Grulliers. If your agenda is to defund the police, it seems nothing to support the officers would work well towards that goal. I'm ever the conspiracy theorist. That's from Farmer's Daughter in the house. We welcome Farmer's Daughter back. She was missing for a little bit there, but we're glad that you're back with us, Farmer's Daughter. Yeah, I think a lot of people are seeing that same pattern exist throughout our society. It feels like a lot of good people are being just thrown out in the garbage because of politics, unfortunately. All right, let's see what else we have here. All right, so I've got another one over from Jeremy Matrita. Says, police are typically aware of innocent bystanders when involved in a shootout. Vehicles are considered a lethal weapon when driving recklessly. There is no difference between an officer in the crowd of an innocent people shooting into a crowd of innocent people to get a perpetrator and driving like a maniac, causing death and destruction within the patrol car. That's from Jeremy Matrita. We have another one here from Baldlerize me says, Rob, sorry, no puns tonight. Miss a big chunk of the show because traffic was murder. Maybe that officer just doesn't like Dodge automobiles. Sounds like he's got a long journey ahead with that caravan of incidents to look at. Great job again, Rob. No puns tonight. Big chunk of the show. Traffic was murder. Doesn't like to Dodge automobiles. Got a long journey ahead of that caravan of incidents to look at. Great job again, Rob. Those are all vehicle names. Damn it. You did it again, Baldlerize me. It's a pretty amazing technique you have. Chairman of the board says, wouldn't the act of driving off and creating a high-speed chase with kids in the car, seatbelt or not, constitute reckless endangerment of a child? Even if they already charged the officer, I don't see how the driver shouldn't also be charged for his part in it. It's sort of like I said, right? They don't want to charge both people with crimes because then both people will, you sort of need one person to testify against the other, right? If they went to the family and said, we need you to testify that this officer was reckless, they need him to come and testify. If they charge him with a crime, then it's in his interest to not testify, right? To not talk about anything. Because then if they're charging him with like unlawful flight or recklessly endangering a child, and they need his testimony to indict and incriminate the officer, then he would not speak unless they granted him immunity or something like that, in which case, why would you charge him in the first place? So they need one to get the other guy. We also have, let's see, a couple more. Former LEO says, what did the report from the officer say? How many pits a year in New York State? A lot of assumptions in this segment. It's true. You're right. There are a lot. I couldn't find much more about the case, honestly. There's just nothing out there. There's no body cam videos. The whole thing is just all happened. It's all news stories. That's it. Vientica says, I'm equally disappointed in the public comments from What's-Her-Face. Every situation has to be used to beat the drums of war. I think that's probably Letitia James you're talking about. Nadarb says, you did a story on the lady from Arkansas that was on the interstate, was waiting to pull over at the next exit like a mile away. The a-hole cop pitted her car, flipping her over, telling her she was wrong. Insane. Yeah, that was that one. Yeah, that was an insane story. And he was like really mad at her. I think she was pregnant too. Sweet Potato says, we will wait. I'm here for the nerdy book since you keep promising to game with us and then ghosting our faithful asses. LOL. That's from Sweet Potato. So I'm building up, some energy to do that. I got Metroid Dread. Yeah, Metroid Dread. I'm playing that, having fun with that. And then there was a new game from Amazon that just came out that I'll probably check that out called New World. I just like to sort of poke around and play around with the technology. I'm not actually a huge gamer. I just kind of like to see it and like, oh, what are they developing in these new digital worlds? Because they are really interesting. Like the amount of depth in these games, it's crazy. And it's been something fascinating to watch over my lifetime. Go from these like little dinky games that you use a little Pong thing on the bottom and hit the ball into these complicated worlds that are like, you can, adjust somebody's facial hair and stuff. It's crazy. So we'll get to that, Sweet Potato. I don't mean to keep stringing my friends over there on Twitch along. We'll do it. I just don't know how to do it, honestly. I don't know what to do on Twitch. Like, I know what to do here on this show, but what am I going to just play a video game? It just feels so weird to me. But I'll get there. AOC says, when we have self-driving cars, can we just disable cars from satellite during a police stop? Well, eventually your whole life is going to be plugged into the system. So, yeah, they'll just be able to shut that off. Cuomo is asking for something inappropriate for me. Not going to allow that to happen because I'm a strong man. Monster One says, not to get conspiratorial, but was Farmer's daughter abducted by aliens? Is that where she's been? Well, look, if it is, I'm not aware of it, okay? I'm not part of the abduction of Farmer's daughter. I hope not. The good news is they've returned her to us, and I think she's in mostly working order, so that's good. We have Sergeant Bob says, crime determines what level of pit could be used, if any, and that's from Sergeant Bob. And while I was fumbling around earlier, I actually got Sergeant Bob's book open. And so here is chapter 34. It's called Cop Talk, Real Stories. It says, and the chase was on. Let's get a little preview of this here. Now, I'm not going to be able to read the whole chapter, but of course, we're going to warm up here. And the chase was on, he says. Being a day shift sergeant at Northeast Precinct was a great job. Most of the officers on the shift had some degree of seniority. They had been around a bit, so a supervisor did not generally need to rein them in, as with some of the younger, not so experienced officers on other shifts. On day shift, officers and supervisors met many members of the public who seemed to appreciate that the police officer's job was not an easy one. They were usually reasonable, and while at times you may not have solved their problem entirely, you offered advice to guide them in a direction where help would be obtained. Officers did not have to routinely deal with the misfits that were commonly the focus of calls in the middle of the night. To keep life interesting on day shift, there were occasional shootings, drug arrests, and other criminal activities which never seemed to take a complete rest. That's from Real Stories. Let me get the title of this book here. Let me pull this up. Cop Talk, Real Stories by Sergeant Bob. What is going on with this thing? Sherman. Real Stories, Real Cops. Here's what it looks like. That top left. See the signs? That's what it looks like. So make sure you go check that book out from Sergeant Bob. We're going to talk to Sergeant Bob about that in December on our monthly meetup. But it's a book. It's with real stories from our very own Sergeant Bob. It's available on Amazon. I got it. I encourage you to go check it out. We're so grateful to have Sergeant Bob, former LEO, all of the other professionals. We've got the good doctor in the house, many others, including firefighter. We've got an amazing community. Let's see, a couple questions. ACLU is here. Says, is a 5G cell phone essentialist? I don't know what that is. We have Sweet Potato says, hit us up for lessons on how to stream. Twitch fam in the chat. We're here for you, LOL. Also, email address is attached to your form, pretty sure. Email us. Let's go. All right, I'll take a look. That's from Sweet Potato. All right, my friends, I think that is it for us for the show for the day. I want to thank everybody who came and participated to help make this live chat, the show, this live stream, the show that it is, with live chat and great questions and good conversation. We couldn't do it without you. And so if you want to be a part of the community when we do record every day, come check us out at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. Have some amazing people who have made the jump. Want to welcome them with open arms. We've got Aaron Caroline also signed up. Dave 520 is joining us for the year. Welcome, Dave. We've got Donna B 300 signed up. Roy Bott signed up. We got Ronnie Cole in the house. French Toast, delicious, welcome. The AI guy is here as well, along with Martini Junkie. We had Just Cows. We have a Cold Painter. We got Damn Girl in the house. Michael N, the AI guy again over here, along with Martini Junkie. I think I copied and pasted some stuff badly. But anyway, the point here, we got some amazing people who are over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com, and they're going to be joining us, I hope, on Saturday, November 6th, 7 to 8 p.m. Eastern Time, over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com, where we have just a great monthly meetup. People come, Zoom cameras on, Zoom cameras off, real names, fake names, doesn't matter. But we're building a group of people that kind of care about each other and want to see our country do well, see each of our lives improve. And so we're connecting, supporting each other, and having a lot of fun, just kind of talking and shooting the breeze, as it were, as it flies throughout all of our lives. So come check that out. Join us Saturday, November 6th, over at watchingthewatchers.locals.com. And that, my friends, is it for me for the day. Thank you once again for being a part of this recording, where we do it live every day, watchingthewatchers.locals.com at 4 p.m. Arizona time, 7 p.m. Eastern time. And then I edit it, I upload it, I get the premiere live on YouTube immediately thereafter. It's usually right about 8 p.m. Arizona time, about 11 p.m. Eastern time. And so there's a live premiere where the chat takes place there. And so shout out to all my friends over there on YouTube as well. Everybody, thank you so much for being a part of the show yet again today. I'll see you right back here tomorrow. Be well, my friends. Bye-bye.